Alright, class, today we're going to learn about evolution. Evolution is essentially a gradual change in species over time, many millions of years. On the right you see the gradual change of the bicycle into the car. Evolution was a topic that I studied in college. I was actually a biology major with an evolution and ecology concentration, so I'm really enjoying this type of material. I hope you do too. Alright, so first Charles Darwin was the main scientist that came up with the theory of natural selection. There was a scientist named Lamarck who thought that organisms would be able to grow on their own, like giraffes could grow longer necks because they need to reach the trees. Darwin knew that there were gradual changes that didn't quite happen that way. He also came up with natural selection. That means that organisms with traits that are best suited to their environment are more likely to survive and reproduce. You need to have survive and reproduce. Another way to coin this term is survival of the fittest. There are four main factors in natural selection. You'll need to know all four. They're pretty common sense. So think about for these, how would an organism be able to survive? Okay. Number one, you'll need more organisms to produce more offspring that can survive. Here you see a picture of a school of fish. You have many different fish. Unfortunately, not all of them will be able to survive, but because we have extra, there's a possibility for change to occur. Next factor is variations must be found among individuals of a species. Here I have different hair coats in these animals, right? By having different hair coats, some of them might be able to blend into their environment better. Some might also be able to, escape from a predator or hunt for prey. Number three, variations need to be passed on to your offspring through DNA, also through heredity. If you remember your Punnett squares, looking at how traits get passed on. Here on the left, you can see these cats passing on the white furred trait to the kid. And you also see these dogs also passing along not only hair color, but maybe how to get food, how to play. That might help them get more energy and so on. Number four, some variations allow members of a population to survive and also reproduce better than others. They studied this in England in the Industrial Revolution. Here we have these white and then peppered moths. They noticed in trees that were in a lightly colored area, which type of moth on the left do you think was better able to survive? Yeah, it's going to be the one on the top. The reason for that is it blends in better to its environment. However, later on, when the Industrial Revolution happened, we had more darker trees. There's more pollution in the air. The ones on the right, which one do you think survived better? Yeah, it's going to be the one on the bottom. Again, this one blended in more. So some were able to survive and also reproduce, have kids better than others. Alright, here are some evidences of evolution occurring. You'll have to go over the evidence on the test in your STAR and explain why that might show evolution's occurring. The first one is the fossil record. Fossils are dated based on age. The oldest fossils are at the bottom, while the newest are at the top. The reason for that is we have a lot of different sediment, different layers that will happen later on in Earth's history. By looking at the gradual change in fossils in an area, we could determine how species might have changed over time. Another piece of evidence for evolution are homologous structures. Homologous, homo means same. So here we're going to have the same type of bone structure. Here I see the humerus, radius, and then 5 appendages. Human, cat, whale, and bat all have very similar bone structures. However, they have different functions. Humans used for grabbing things, while a whale might be for swimming and a bat might be for flying. This is another piece of evidence showing that we might be related in some way. The third way is through embryology, that's studying the embryos. Here we have the earliest organisms, earliest form of the embryo. Here, as we go from top to bottom, we're going to see their later stages right before they get born. They look very similar on the top, almost the exact same cell structures. But then as they get more developed, they will start differentiating into what their normal species looks like. Another piece of evidence is DNA. Organisms that have close relatives will have similar DNA. For example, a dog is the closest relative to a bear. We went over DNA and how it translates and transcribes. Here's our ACAT. That might be part of the dog DNA. The bear DNA is going to be very similar. Instead of a CAT, it might be a GAT. So this only difference you see here shows that they might be very similar. The least number of differences, the closer related they are. Finally, with adaptation, organisms with a given adaptation, again, are more likely to survive and then reproduce. The genes will then be passed on to the next generation, and then increases the frequency of the gene. That doesn't necessarily mean that the older species or the ones that are not as well adapted will completely go extinct. That's why we see a lot of variation in dog species, for instance, a lot of different breeds, but it just makes it more frequent in the population.